Alright everyone, welcome back to Brown Motorsports. I'm Cade, and today we're going to be rebuilding the carburetor off a 1986 TRX 70. It is a little different carburetor design than what you guys are typically going to see on this channel, being it has the petcock built onto the carburetor bowl itself, something we really don't see often. As you guys can see, this one has actually been blocked off partly by the previous owner. We are going to take care of all that while we've got it apart, so let's go ahead and get this thing opened up and get it in the tank. First off, we're going to take off the bowl, and then we'll remove the petcock assembly from its bowl. This machine doesn't really ever get ridden. It's kind of just a showpiece for the customer. It's been sitting in his storage building for the last several years. He's just wanting to get it out and kind of get it going so he can enjoy it again. As you guys can see, there is a lot of buildup in the bottom of this bowl, which is about what we expected to see with something sitting for this amount of time. So we're going to go ahead and pop the petcock assembly off this guy. As you can see, we're spilling gas everywhere. Go ahead and remove your... It's kind of a sediment bowl, which not everything uses. There again, lots of buildup. Get all the O-rings. Go ahead and pop the drain screw out of the bowl so the bowl is completely stripped and it's ready for the tank. Then we'll go ahead and disassemble the main body. Let's go ahead and get our float needles pulled out. And we're going to move on to the jets. Go ahead and remove our main and secondary. Looks like it's going to come out as an assembly. This would be your idle set screw, so we will remove it. We'll also remove your air fuel mixture screw. We will leave the choke assembly and everything on. Going into the ultrasonic tank's not going to affect that or its cleaning ability, so I like to leave that stuff on. Double check there's no O-ring sitting down in your air fuel mixture hole. Go ahead and pop the seating O-ring out. Now that actually already has this little carb stripped. There's really not a whole lot that goes into these little guys. So we're going to go ahead and get everything in the tank. And we'll be back when it comes out to rebuild and get this put back on the unit. Alright guys, so we're back to do the TRX 70 carb to get it out of the tank and rebuild it. I did forget to put the petcock assembly in initially on the first video. It is in the tank, that's why you guys don't see it laying here. We're going to go ahead and get everything out of the tank, get it all blown out, and go ahead and get this thing reassembled and get it ready to go back on the bike. Now that everything's blown off, make sure all the passengers are clean, everything's kind of cleaned up. It's out of the ultrasonic. You can now see how much better it looks just from the cleaning process. So now we're going to go ahead and get the carb kit opened up so we can get all the new gaskets and O-rings and whatnot. We'll start out with putting our orifice tube back in, and then we'll set our main jet into that. I do always like to use OE jets. You don't necessarily have to reuse the OE. I just prefer to. It's set to the bike. It all just makes it seem like it runs a little bit better. We'll get our secondary jet set, or pilot jet, however you want to refer to it. The float valve, or needle. Typically you'll see once we get the float set, we'll actually set our needle height. With this style of carburetor, there is no setting height. It just kind of is what it is. So now we'll apply our new bowl gasket and get the bowl put back on. Sure, you guys have noticed we typically always use these all balls carb kits. They are nice because they include all the jets, screws, gaskets, O-rings, just anything you need in as far as rebuilding one of these carburetors. The all balls kit just comes with everything, and it seems to be pretty good quality. We've been using them for years now. Set the new O-ring on the internal fuel filter. Only everybody still offered an internal fuel filter. New intake O-ring. Now we will set our idle mixture or idle screw back. With these, it's a little harder to get your initial idle screw set because you don't have the slide in the carb. So I typically like to just get it inside of the bore, and then once it's on the machine, we'll fire it up and actually set the final adjustment. Our air mixture screw back in. Just as a baseline on your air mixture, you always want to go to seated. So just when you start feeling it kind of stop, then you want to go back out 2.5 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 halves. Put our drain screw back in with the new O-ring. So that has this carb pretty well ready to go back onto its original bike. You will notice this was blocked off in the initial video. We're gonna block it off again. This does have an aftermarket fuel tank and it only allows one fuel inlet in. So you kind of have to block off this other one or it will just kind of free flow fuel. So we're just gonna put a cap on it instead of having the hose with a bolt shoved in it like the previous owner had. Aside from that, this thing's clean and ready to go back on. Next time you guys see it, it'll actually be installed on the unit.
So now that Cade got the carburetor all cleaned and ready to go, we can go ahead and get it thrown back on the unit and get the fuel lines hooked up. I'm actually going to set you guys up a little bit closer so you can get a little bit better idea of what's going on. Let's get to it.
So we don't have a whole lot of room to work here, but I'm going to go ahead and get this thing thrown on here and try to stay out of your way so you can see what's going on. I'm going to start by putting the slide in because it's always a lot easier to do before the carb's actually bolted on. As you can see, there's these slots here that core line with pegs inside, so you want to make sure you get that lined up properly. Just like that. You screw this cap on. Then have to be super tight, hand tight. Always want to check throttle before you get everything bolted on. Make sure the slide is flowing nicely. As you can see, there it is. Now, get it spun around here the right way. Now one side bolts and the other side is actually a clamp, so you always want to get the clamp side in first to make your life a little easier. Now we can run these two bolts in. You always want to make sure that you got your gasket here. There's usually going to be a filler piece of plastic that helps absorb all the small imperfections. And then there's usually an O-ring in the carburetor, especially on the smaller stuff. Same thing on the other side. This side actually has a little bracket on it. Alright, so that side's finally tight. It was a little finicky because it was actually a lot closer to the intake pipe, so I couldn't actually get the ratchet on it, but I got it. And last but not least, don't forget carburetor drain, which is the bowl drain, I guess.
So now that we've got the carb all put back together, it's time to see if it's gonna run. I do have the plastics just laying on here for right now because if it doesn't run, I don't have to take them back off. So when it does run, I'll bolt them down. So let's go ahead and turn it on, see what it'll do. Well, it don't get any better than that. That's why a cleaned OE carb is way better than anything else. Once again, if you enjoyed this video or found anything interesting or got any information out of it, please consider subscribing or at least sticking around to see what project we work on next. Thanks for watching.